Yep.
Okay. So I've just got, I'm a big believer in nano silk, but not black, because any color rubs out on your hand. So I normally have a stash of white that's just arrived. I ran out, and now I'm on black. You'll see my hands after this flower. Okay, so now you've got a choice in materials for the tail. You can use pheasant tail or Coq de Leon or Partridge. I'm a Coq de Leon boy. I don't know why. I just like the boring on the tail. But one thing as well is that last year my tails were the same length as the body. And when I went to France, they have these stubby little tails. And I was thinking, wow, you know, a mayflower's got a big tail. It's like, yeah, they do, but mayflowers sit on the bottom. If you want to get your flowers to the bottom, make it sink. So the shorter the tail, the less drag in the water. So I'm not very fussy with my tails. I just take a bunch of like 4 or 5 fibers. You can measure it, about half the shank. And then when I tie on it, I'd always tie it in on the side coming towards me. And then when I pinch it, I roll it over so it sits straight. Okay, now that's way too long. And then what you see, what I did there, I'll show you again.
Is you spray them?
No, so I don't spray them. I put a wrap underneath. And then you'll see it sprays them a little bit, but it's a short, stubby little tail. And I used to sit there and I used to spend time of trying to get them out perfectly, but I'd rather have 10 flies than 2 flies. And the fish don't matter. And half my flies end up in the tree before they end up in a fish's mouth anyway. So I'm not picky, and you know, I'm not a pedantic. I spend a lot of time tying flies. My wife complains. Well, she actually doesn't complain, but she should complain. But so for me, it's just about efficiency, and I like to have a full fly box, and I'm confident in my flies. And I've had perfect tails, and I've had really cuck tails. I mean, I've had days where the tail falls off the fly with 2 fish, and you can catch a handful of fish after that with no tail and no body. You just thread it in the body, they still eat it, because with the technique strikes and the flies in the right place. Okay, now what a lot of people do, okay, this is a little trick of mine, is they tie in the copper wire now and they use it as a rip. But what happens, you have to always get on a nymph that taper. As soon as you tie in your copper wire there, you've tied in bulk, correct?
Yeah.
And then you still have to add more bulk on the top to make up for that bulk. So a lot of my teammates hate this, what I do, but I do it anyway. I tie in the copper rib at the end. I'll show you why. So I'll take some pheasant tail. So I'm going to take 3 fibers. There's no rule. Oh, wait, I want to take this one actually. It's a little bit thicker. I like this color. So you get different like colors. I like more of a darky tinge to it, so it's like a mottled brown. So I'm going to take 3, and then I'm going to tie it in. You'll see there's a point of when it goes thick to thin. I'm going to cut it just where the taper starts, and I'm going to tie in the thinnest points at the bottom here, because I want to put as little bulk as possible. So I'll tie it in there, and then I'll carry on all the way to the front. Now, in the front here, you can play around a bit, because you can add some bulk there, because you need that taper. So one of my trick now with my hotspots is you get different color wires. Now I'm starting to put a bit of color in my wire. So instead of putting a big hotspot, like everyone does, like a hotspot nymph or this and that nymph, I put the hotspot. You'll see I don't use flash in any of my flies anymore at all. But the only color will come in the hotspot in the front or the wire. This is a new thing I've been doing. So what I'll do with the wire is I'll lock it in the front there.
What color wire is that, Dan?
This is like a rose pink.
Okay.
And you see I've put the wire halfway through the shank.
Yeah.
And now I'll tie it down this way. So now without using any extra thread wraps, I've already created a taper in the fly. You're with me there.
Yeah.
So a lot of people will sit there and they'll sit there with thread building up thoraxes, but with me I use Nano silk, so it takes a lot of thread to do that. It's super thin. And now I've got a taper without even using anything, and a super thin fly that's going to sink really quickly. Okay, so now I'm going to wet my fingers, and I put them right next to each other. And then as soon as you go a little bit higher up, you can put them slowly on top of each other. You build up a little bit of bulk. You want that taper. And sometimes... Sorry?
You twist the pheasant tail, you just
No, I don't twist it. I just put them right next to each other. Because then you always get that nice furry little thing. You can cut it off there. So, I promise you now, and this is a trick, the skinniest anorexic, the more anorexic your fly is, the better. Don't ever look at it and say it looks stupid because it's so thin. Trust me, a mayfly's got a thinner body than your flies. If you can just fish a plain hook shank, you'll do well. So now I'm going to just go opposite direction. I don't do a lot. I'll do maybe 3 or 4. As long as they're equal. And one thing that you guys must remember is I'm not a fly tie, I'm a fisherman. So I do flies that catch fish, not that look pretty, necessarily. Okay, so now this is what my teammates hate. So I don't tie down my copper wire.
Serious?
I do it like that. I twist it off.
Are you being serious?
Never tied down.
I'm with the teammates on this one.
The whole thing for me is that, for me, the profile's right. I know my nymph's going to be thinner than anyone else's nymph, so it's going to sink quicker, and more than likely you're going to lose a fly before the wire comes undone. Yes, okay, so sometimes I eat my words, but there's no issues. Okay, so that's the bulk of the body. Okay, now there's a few different ways to put your hotspot and to put your movement in. What I like to do, I'm going to do a micro hotspot, is if I do a wire and a hotspot, I like to kind of match the colors. Not necessarily exactly the same, but more or less the same. I learned to fly from our Czech coach, Yuri Pichot. He's called a backpack nymph. So I take a little bit of dubbing, and you'll see the ones I use from a hotspot are always a off pink or off orange. I don't like that fluoro color because the fish can see it. You don't want to put them off. Rather have something too little, rather have a fly that's too small than too big. Same with the hotspot. So I take my dubbing. I don't like Entron, or it's just too much for me. So this is like an off pink. I tie in a little wing case like that. And what you can do as well is, a lot of my flies are tied as a throat, not a wing case. So I put it underneath. Just depends on my mood that day. So I make it sparse like that, and then I cut it super flush. So it actually gives, in the water, gives a nice profile as an emerger. So this is a wing case. It's a hot spot, but it's a natural wing case. And there's not too much to put the fish off. It's very subtle. So I'll turn it over, you can see. Very subtle. Okay, now there's a few ways of doing this. I'm going to show you a really cool technique that I learned last year. I'm going to do this one with CDC and with Partridge, and then you can do both or one. Okay, everything's going to be sparse, but I want to show you a trick. No one's seen this trick yet. It's pretty cool. Where is my CDC here? Follow my CDC. I'm very anal when it comes to CDC feathers. So when you get good quality CDC that's fluffy and got all the stalks on, then you have bad quality CDC that's just like, just straight fibers with no scribble on it. And you actually, for nymph, you want the bad CDC because it sinks quicker. You don't need it to float. So like there, you see that? Those are straight points. Okay. So what I'm going to do is, as I say to you, it's going to be very sparse. So I spread out those fibers, put in my clamp, and I pull them, but they must be short. You always pinch them, but you're going to be short. Okay, now what a lot of guys do is they'll put dubbing and then the CDC. Correct? Herman? Correct. But this is a little trick. And if you tie in the jig buggers or CDC buggers, I love to do this. Okay, I'm going to take another hook and I'll put on my nail. I've never done a dubbing loop in my life, so I love my split threads. That's why I love Nano silk. Almost every fly I tie, dry fly, nymph or stillwater fly, I split my thread. I pre-spin it on my finger. Can you all see where my finger is? Okay. Yeah, so I always pre-twist it with my finger in the middle. So when I let go of the material, it catches us very quickly. Okay, then I'll take this dubbing, it really doesn't matter. I'm going to take a little bit of squirrel or whatever you want to use, hair, just a little bit, and I'm going to dub one side of the thread. But sparse, guys, rather too little than too much. Let's see. You won't believe the size flies we fish in these days, and how sparse they are. I mean, on the rivers now, like 18's big and 20's average. Even for yellows. So it just goes smaller and smaller, and every time we go smaller and smaller, we're catching more and more fish. And we fish a dirty, the Vaal when it's dirty, and you fish a single size 20 nymph, and you're catching more fish than you did when you fished a 16. And you're like, how do these fish see it? I don't know, but they see it. Okay, then, so I've spun one side, then I take the CDC, put it inside, and I time it well. Let go and it spins. So it catches straight away. And the nice thing with this now is that it's all in together. So you want to brush out CDC, you want to get a bit of scruffiness, you just go slightly there, play around, so now it's a little bit scruffy. And then while you pull around, you pull back. Always wet my fingers, you want those fibers to pull back. You can always pull some feathers off there. So already you've got a very buggy looking emerger. It could be a caddis, it could be a mayfly. I don't own a caddis. For me, if this is in the water, it could look like a caddis, it could look like a mayfly, it could look like a crab. I don't really care as long as the fish eat it. Okay, I would put a partridge collar, but I'm not going to put on this fly because it's really a bit much. But if you wanted to tie now, instead of putting the CDC, put a partridge. I really do like partridge because it's got like a natural barring and it pushes a little bit more water. But a trick now is what I've learned is I use to tie it off now. But obviously, the more, the more condensed the fibers are to the body, the quicker it's going to sink. And you want a darker thorax. Right? Yeah. Okay, so take a bit of black or natural or anything you want just to break up the contrast. A little black dubbing. And whenever I do a CDC or a partridge collar, I always put dubbing in front of it. So you'll get the natural break and you'll just put all those, that movement and the CDC or the partridge closer to the fly. Because sink rate is the most important thing. And I go with my Nano silk, get it down. Now you've got the contrast and you've pulled all those fibers closer down. And if you wet this fly, you'll see how those fibers go flush onto the body.
Why do you use a white bead?
A little bit different. I like using white beads in white and black, so it's a really good color in dirty water. So now on the Vaal, when the water is like very off color, even our trout rivers at the moment, it's different. But white with a black color, like that contrast for me it always kills fish. But I use I've got 100 color beads at home, but copper, silver are my number one beads always. And then I've got white, I've got purple, so they work well. But it's something different. I like the contrast. Still water, rivers is so important. Catches that fishes are. So there's a very simple, but promise you now, if you tie this flower and a few color variations, you won't need to tie another nymph in your life. It's got movement, it's got the sync rate, it's got everything you need. And the more CDC or the more partridge you put on, the bigger the bead, or you can wrap a bit of lead wire behind it. But try to rather put the weight in the bead than the flower, because as soon as you put lead in the thorax, it builds up thickness and it reduces the drag. So that's a simple Vaal jig, come on, I'll tell you.